So I was lucky to be able to just highlight segments of the song that I liked and put them together. So this is going to be an information talk. I'm going to talk about some of my inspiration for doing stuff. I'm going to play a little bit of music, but if anybody's jumping in, this is going to be mostly me blah, blah, blahing. I'm not going to have a lot of connection with the chat. We will do questions at the end, but we're doing this for the GSG Talks so we can share information about different stuff for different people in the club. So I'm going to go through my story real quick. Talk about where I'm coming from. So for the first 2 decades of my kind of musical journey, there were 2 things I never had in the same place at the same time. So when I was young, I played in bands as a keyboard player and a singer, and I really liked what I did. I toured the country. I opened for some big acts. I was essentially in a local band. Like, it wasn't a big band that you would have heard of, but we did pretty good. Like, we worked hard. We got some breaks along the way. And I really liked what I did, but I never had total control over the sound. I wasn't really making the music that I wanted to make, and I'm not even sure that at the time that I knew what that was, because I hadn't had a chance to explore on my own, really. I hadn't had a chance to really explore music outside of kind of the band dynamic. And I grew up in kind of a smaller town, so we didn't really have certain styles of music were just not available really to play or to be a part of without serious threat of being bullied. So anyways, so after that, I took some time away from music to focus on other things. And when I returned to it, I started making music from my glorious home studio, which you can see here, which I'm sure everybody out there can relate to, making music in home studios. That's what the stream life is all about. I did some work for Sync. I scored some short films and started releasing music again. And in this phase of my music career, in kind of the phase 2, we'll call it, I had a lot of control, but I had no community. I was doing everything myself. I was trying to learn how to earn an audience through advertising, which is horrible. It's like a sea of YouTube videos, and like people yelling at you, kind of telling you what to do. So during the pandemic, I began experimenting with playing online. And it started with publishing short videos, and I moved from little mini concerts in my studio. I started streaming on Facebook, which was horrible. Just not special at all. Didn't feel like anybody cared. I feel like when you're on Facebook, it's like doing laundry. Like, it's just so banal and mundane, and everybody's like, I gotta check my Facebook. Like, nobody gets excited about seeing anybody there. So then I went through different platforms, and I had a DJ friend that actually streamed on Twitch. And I ended up starting streaming on Twitch, and I really liked it. I liked the way it felt special. I liked the way that people were there. People were there to check you out. People were there just specifically to hear what you had to do or say. And then I started researching people that were doing the same thing I was. I fell in with the GSG after looking around a little bit. And then, long story medium, I started getting more and more involved with the GSG, and at the end of that road, I had control over the music I wanted to play, and I had community. So it's really easy to say that this is really the highlight of my musical career, at least in the last 15 years, because I can do what I want to do, and I have people to share it with. It's tough to get to that point. But that is why I won't do the talk on this, but that is why I highly recommend that anybody that does music makes streaming at least a part of what they do. A part of their process should be to stream their music live, because it offers so much in the way of community, the way of practice, the way of different types of connections with your fans. But let's get to the meat of the talk. Today I'm going to be talking about other people's music. Let's see if we can play this. Should have practiced that. Other people's music. So I've been having a lot of fun with this lately. I've been having a lot of fun. I write and perform a lot of original music, but I've been having so much fun lifting pieces of other people's music, using pieces of other people's music, and learning pieces of other people's music that I just wanted to talk about it. I wanted to share it with some people out there, make sure that they know it's an option, and show them some ways that they can go about doing that. So let's get into the why of it first. I'm going to be playing this whole time because it makes me much more comfortable to talk if I'm playing, and I think it's a more pleasant experience for all of you. So you are, and all this is my opinion, so if you disagree with any of it, great. I'd love to hear why. We'll do a quick Q&A at the end. But I hope you don't take offense to any of my stances that I have on things. So I believe that you are a combination of your genes, your experience. That's who you are. You are whatever genetic makeup was shot into the world and all the experiences that you've had along the way. That's what makes you who you are. And when you write and perform, you are outputting who you are. You're outputting all of those experiences, channeled through all of the music that you've heard that you're drawing from. So, big part of those experiences are the music that you ingest, the music that you listen to. I mean, everyone here listens to music, I would think, on the stream. Everyone in the world listens to music, but especially people on the stream. They listen to music probably very regularly, and that affects what they do, and that affects the music that they create, the music that they play. If they do DJ stuff, that's obviously the music that they play. So, without input, your well runs dry. I mean, can you imagine if you stopped listening to music and you just wrote music and listened to the music you wrote? You'd be caught in a loop. You'd be writing the same thing over and over again. You would have no input. So, if we take that a step further, if you learn what makes it tick, learn why you like, what the common elements are, that's what I'm going to talk about first. Overall, I recommend spending about a third of your composition exploration time devoted to this. If you write, I mean, it's hard to separate you write, maybe you practice, maybe you do some other things, but I try not to go more than a week if I'm writing in a heavy writing phase without sitting down with 2 new pieces a week and learning them. Now, I can read music, not fast, but I know how to read music, so it's a little bit easier for me, but there's plenty ways to do this even if you can't read music, or even if you're not an instrumentalist. So we're going to start, I'll give you an example. Okay, so there we go. So you can hear these chords. This is beautiful chords. The way that this is all put together just haunts me. It's inspired me for 20 years. So, as you can pick through it, you can pluck out what these chords are. Even if you're not an instrumentalist, you're not a keyboardist, you can find these tones. You can also use a reverse chord finder, which is anywhere. You can just Google it, look it up, and then you can put in these notes, and it will tell you what chord it is. You can write that chord down on a sticky note and put it up wherever you work. This is a C6 sus2 chord. So use that as your bass. Like when you get that down, when you find a chord from a song you like, start playing around, experimenting with it. And you can start to build with that, you can start to play with it. And I want to talk about something. Chordify is a really good resource. Let's get this out of the way now, because this is going to apply to everything I say. We are far beyond the times where where I feel like anybody should feel any shame as an artist about using other people's music. I feel like those times are behind us. Everything is built on something else. Everything that's constructed on something that happened before. So if I ever play something and somebody goes, oh yeah, that sounds like that melody, oftentimes my response is, yeah, it is that melody because I love that song. I wanted to use it in my song. So I just wanted to make sure that I cover that I don't think there's any reason to feel strange about using somebody else's music and building on that music, even if it's a direct part of their music. So anyways, back to what we're talking about. So you can use these chords to build off. You can find out what the chords are and then slowly start incorporating those into your own sounds. The same thing we can do with rhythms. This is another example. This is from Bicep. This is a little bit different. This is a song called Glue by Bicep. It's another one of my favorite songs. And what you can do with this, if you don't know the first thing about this, close your eyes and tap along. You don't have to be tapping on anything. And spend the whole song with your eyes closed, just meditating and tapping along with the rhythm. It's such a wonderful song. I'm going to play over the song for a second. Okay, I don't want to get too lost. I was really feeling that song. So, you tap over the rhythm to that, and it's important that you deconstruct these pieces. It's important that you have an analog trigger system of recreation. What I mean by that is not just taking that sample and using it in your music, that you use an analog method to perform that, even if it's just one element of it, even if it's just 2 notes at a time. If that's your skill level, great. But that analog trigger system of recreation will allow you to make changes as you want. You'll play with it, and in a sense, you'll kind of own it. It becomes a part of your output because you are mechanically triggering those things. It sinks in a way that it doesn't from just listening to something. And you'll start to see those rhythmic ideas, those melodic ideas come into your output. And to me, that it feels like a greater connection with what you're doing. For instrumentalists, you can read and learn other people's music as a consistent part of your diet. But when you start to learn what chords make up the songs you like, you can start to learn basic theory and what tones work with other tones. Learning basic theory is not a huge time investment. I think it scares a lot of people. You can start to put things together immediately. Like if I started playing the violin, I wouldn't be able to make it sound like anything for a long, long time. But with theory, within the first week and 2 weeks, you can start to put together pieces that'll make sense to you and that will keep you moving forward with it and will show you how to work around or how to work with some of the music, some of the scales, some of the sounds that you like. The other thing I want to talk about right now, which is really important to me, is I believe that learning does not limit you. I've heard some people say it does. I've heard the argument that people say, I don't want to learn anything about music because I don't want to be limited. I don't want to be put in a box. And the more I learn, the less creative room I have to move. I strongly push back against that. In my experience, and I've grown up with people that hyper-studied 4 to 6 hours a day. I've grown up with people that didn't study at all. Or let's just say didn't learn anything about music. Entirely self-taught. Basically, here's how I'll put it. The time you would have to spend in order to be limited by learning about music is more time than you will ever spend. If you studied music for 4 to 5 hours a day, 5 days a week, okay, yeah, I could see that. Never took a break to explore on your own. I could see that. I could see you saying, well, now I feel like I'm limited. But studying theory, that kind of thing for 5, 6, 2, 3 hours a week, it's not going to limit you, I promise. I think you would have to go so far down that rabbit hole before you would stop creating that you have nothing to be afraid of as far as that goes. But if you are, here's what to do. Keep it to like a 1-to-2 ratio. Make sure that you study for a couple weeks, learn some theory, learn some basics, and then go on your own for a couple weeks. So you're not falling into that, so there's no danger of that happening. Think about it this way. Music is a type of magic, right? There's formulas. You could call them spells. So learn from your elders. Learn from the people that have come before you that know those formulas. See what it's about. Okay. So I'm going to go into using other people's music in your performance. Some artists have a weird trigger around cover songs. I know a handful of different musicians that won't include them in their set because they feel like they're a wedding singer. I don't know how else to put it. They feel like it's cheap. They feel like, I don't know, it's selling them out in some way. I guess I'd have to ask one, but everybody here likes music, right? So why not get into it? Why not show some love and pay some respect for what inspired you? You don't have to do straight covers. You can take hooks, you can twist them up, slow them down. Even that small amount of recognition can help keep people involved in your sets. Frankly, I think it's hard for your brain to digest hours and hours of original music. I think your brain gets tired and it wants something to latch onto. So I highly recommend throwing in little pieces of what inspired you during your sessions. So the first style of this, I'm just going to call the mashup because I think that's what people would call it. I think that's what the name would be. So let me show you kind of what I went through with this. So I started with this sample.
Any chant, surprise the face, tells about the people going on.
Does anybody know where that sample's from? Oh my goodness gracious.
Any chant, surprise the face, tells about the people going on.
Okay. So that is a sample of the opener with the music stripped out from Seal's Crazy.
Any chant, surprise the face, tells about the people going on.
Okay. Oh my gosh. And this song was life-changing for me. It's one of the first songs like this I'd ever heard when I was, 12 years old. I heard this song. And I know there's Fly Like an Eagle, and I know there's other songs. This probably isn't as groundbreaking to most people, but in my life, it made a world of difference to me because it's the first time that I'd heard this kind of electronic music in this format. So I wanted to use a piece of it. So I wanted to use a piece of this song in something I did. So I stripped away the music, I pitched it down, and then added in this bass line, which you'll recognize if I play the whole thing, which is another song that really lit me up when I first heard it as a kid. So I took a little piece of that, put it with the Seal sample,
Surprise the face, tells about the people going under.
and then I brought in
Any chant, surprise the face, tells about the people
Then I brought in this Drake sample, which the first time I heard this song, I thought, oh my God, the sample's so lush. I really love this way this makes me feel. I don't really care about Drake either way. I mean, I have no issue with Drake, but his lyrics don't especially inspire me. I don't feel any kind of connection or passion there. So I was lucky to be able to just highlight segments of the song that I liked and put them together. And then I stick them all together. Okay. So that's one style that I've been messing with, which is just a mashup. And then I just play over the top of that. Okay, so that's one style that uses a lot of different elements, and if you start working with whatever programs you work with, it's fairly easy now to beat match. It's easy to tune things, so you can find the key that you want. You can get everything in the same key, and you can line it up usually pretty well. Okay. So, there's another style of cover, if you want to call it that I've been really into, and that is taking an element from somebody else's music and writing and then constructing something entirely different, using that as a base. So, most of you probably know this sample from Kid Cudi, or sample, this is a song from Kid Cudi.
Now look at this. Madness, the magnet keeps attracting me. I try to run, but see, I'm not that fast.
So I isolate the vocal.
But surely finish last. Cause day and night, the lonely stoner seems to free his mind at night. He's all alone through the day and night. The lonely loner seems to free his mind at night. At night, day and night. The lonely stoner seems to free his mind at night. He's all alone.
So I experimented with it until I found chords that would work underneath that.
The lonely loner seems to free his mind at night. At night.
The last thing I'm going to talk about is what I'm sure a lot of people already do, which is just lifting one sample and putting it in your song. But I believe it really improves your connection with the music. I think it improves your audience connection with the music. So this was the original sample, which I heard first on TikTok, I think. It's like a TikTok trend.
Do one that's like, I took the drugs and the drugs are working.
This is the original.
I took the drugs and the drugs are working. And the drugs are working. I took the drugs and the drugs are working. Took the drugs are working.
Okay, so that's the original. Then I started with that sample.
I took the drugs and the drugs are working.
I mutated it a little bit.
And the drugs are working.
And then one thing I think it's pretty important
And the drugs are working.
when you're doing something like this is to go as far away in the direction as you really can. So
I took the drugs and the drugs are working.
I put like a Moombaton beat behind it.
I took the drugs and the drugs are working. The drugs are working.
Just so I could be in a completely different arena than the original sample.
I took the drugs and the drugs are working.
And I'll show you something while I'm here.
I took the drugs and the
And then I just built the song around it.
I took the drugs and the drugs are working. I took the drugs and the drugs are working.
I'll show you something else that's super easy to do as kind of a hack almost. That is, I just took this beat and I just pitched it to different intervals to give myself to give it like a fuller feeling. It's just pitched and affected. And then I took the same beat and started it at different times on a pad below it, so I can randomly hit one of those two, and it'll keep going. But during the set, I can tap those to really take it in a different direction quickly. Okay. So my time is short. I'd love to talk more about production, but that's it. That's the end of my presentation. A couple set tips. I always think you should finish strong with your set. I love callbacks. I think that is really important. If you start with a particular pattern and you move somewhere else to come back to that pattern later in the set, I think it's, I think it creates a good connection. But hopefully I'll do another talk on it where we slow it down and I talk about some of the elements I put in. So, talk to you guys soon.